This is a presentation on how to help students prepare for post-secondary education or training. My name is Randy Ewart. I'm a longtime math teacher with many years of teaching at the college level. I have a master's in special education, and you can reach me at the email address or at the web page listed on the slide. First, let's take a look at how well students are prepared for college. Connecticut's P20 Council has a report that gives tremendous insight into how well students are prepared for college. 3/4 of the class of 2008 went into post-secondary education of some kind. Students with special needs are likely to go to a two-year college at first or as their terminal location. And from the class of 2002, you see that only 12% of students entering community college were able to finish within 3 years. In 2009, 72% of students entering community college needed a remedial math or English class, often called developmental classes, meaning in academic terms, the students largely were not prepared. This is a survey, the results of a survey given at Manchester Community College to the students. The students were asked why students struggle in class. The second most prevalent answer was students don't know how to study effectively. These are excerpts from syllabi from Central Connecticut State University. The key point I'd like you to take note of here is that the vast majority of the grades are based on assessments, not effort, not work submitted, but strictly on mastery of content. This is a big change for most of our kids. Similarly, at Manchester Community College and UConn, you see that even a higher percentage of the grade is based on assessment and not effort. This is a side-by-side comparison of stats courses from high school, which is on the left, and college, a college course, which is on the right. The same content is covered. Notice how many days are provided in high school compared to college. Students in high school are given 30 days to cover content that is covered in only 12 days in college. This is a huge change for our kids. These are quotes from former students of mine, and I believe they show how ill-prepared students can be in terms of self-help skills. Students not knowing how to find or to use their resources. Student retention, especially in math, is a problem. These are typical chapters found in an Algebra 1 and an Algebra 2 course. And you'll see that in the Algebra 2 course, you're covering the same material, but in greater detail. What we find is oftentimes students do not have carryover mastery from the previous course, so they struggle. This continues when the students go on to college. This is a calculus problem showing the long version of how to compute a derivative. The problems in the square are Algebra 1 steps. These are steps that students would have learned in Algebra 1. What we find is that students who do not master and have long-term retention of algebra struggle in subsequent courses. This continues in college. A major problem with the system is that students can fail or not retain or not have any mastery of key concepts in a math course, such as slope in an Algebra 1 course, but they can pass the class and move forward, and future lessons build on the concept of slope. If the students have a gap and do not know slope, they struggle down the line. In effect, what happens is we're kicking the can down the road. Eventually, the road becomes a dead end. When students go to college, self-help skills will be essential. There's a mixed metaphor that I like to use to help understand what students need. Not only do you have to lead a horse to water, but you have to show him how to fish. You have to train the kids on how to help themselves. The problem is we often see in high school what I call the Lone Ranger approach. The Lone Ranger rides into town, saves the town people, and then rides off. The townspeople are not left any better as far as helping themselves. So when the next bad guys come into town, the townspeople are still stuck. If we don't train the kids on how to help themselves, when they face the next problem, they're still stuck. This is a citation of a journal research article that addresses the need for students to help themselves. They call this academic discipline. There's no surprise what the authors found in this article is basically when students rely on themselves, when they have self-help skills, they perform better. Next, I'm going to talk about some different self-help skills and share some examples. It's important to understand that homework is important for a couple reasons. It develops responsibility and it gives kids opportunities to learn by doing. It's like practice, like when you practice baseball or practice playing the saxophone. This connection between notes, homework, quizzes, tests, and the final exam are often overlooked. In this example, I show a problem from each of these different levels, and you can see that the problems are all very similar. What you see in your notes is what you'll see in homework, you'll see on quizzes, tests, and eventually the final. This is an example of a student's homework on the right, and on the left is a student's own notes. And you can see, even if you don't know math, that the student didn't even attempt to follow the example from his own notes. Notice there's no parentheses even in the problems on the homework. In this student example, the student was given or copied the example from the board for problem 1. The students were asked to identify A, B, and C, and that's all. In problems 2, 3, and 4, you see what the student actually attempted, and you don't see any effort to identify A, B, or C. This is an example of a word problem being translated into an equation. This student followed the steps perfectly. What's amazing here is that this student only spoke Chinese at the time that she did this work. Yet in the same class, students who spoke English their entire lives struggled tremendously with this because they could not or would not attempt to follow the steps. I use the analogy of a maze to help students understand academic discipline. I have students attempt to traverse a maze on their own, and afterwards we debrief. I ask them what happens when you get stuck. The students respond, you back up and you try something else. I explain, well, that's how you try math. That's how you do math problems. I train students on academic discipline by giving them open-ended problems where I ask them to problem solve and explain. In this example, you'll see that the student did not get the correct answer, but made the effort and attempted to explain. That's a big step towards higher level problem solving. And this is an example of training a student on academic discipline. In college or post-secondary training, maintaining a notebook as a resource is very important. Again, referring back to the previous example, uh, the, the assessments and the homework will have problems very similar to the notebook or the notes in the notebook. You can see from these two different notebooks from the same class that one student was keeping all the information and another student was lacking a lot of information. I suggest that students maintain notebooks in chronological order as opposed to by different sections. I like having all the content that's related to each other kept together chronologically. Here's an example of a notebook where the paper's not only loose, but you have all types of chapters mixed together. This is a common problem. Another problem, simply stuffing papers into the folder instead of putting them in the ring. My approach is a table of contents approach. You'll see on the paper on the left, it's an actual table of contents where each paper in the notebook is listed. And on the right, you'll see examples where the handouts or notes are dated, labeled with a page number, and then this helps the students keep their work in chronologic order. I provide this rubric to help students understand what's expected for their notebook. This is available on the website. I found two different challenges for the students in terms of keeping a notebook. One was motivation. I told the students ahead of time that they could have an open notebook test. Despite this, students still on a daily basis were not focused on trying to maintain a notebook. And the other, which I was addressing with the rubric, is how to maintain a notebook, and that's what we were practicing. But even with the opportunity for an open notebook test, the kids still struggled. It takes effort to train them. This is a photo of the notebook submitted to me when I first initiated this new approach to notebooks. The students were supposed to have a 3-ring binder. As you can see from here, most students did not even have a 3-ring binder. These are the scores on the notebooks, and as you can see, the majority of students were making 60s or below. So the following will show you what you can do as parents. As a parent, you can ask to see the notebook on a regular basis and simply look to see if it's organized and in order. Look over the homework. Verify that the assignment was written on an agenda, that all the problems were attempted, and compare the homework to the example as I showed you in previous slides. I strongly recommend that a student receiving special education services be provided support in maintaining a notebook during class and not in isolation with the para. There's one last point about students receiving special education services and homework. This photo is of an agenda for a student with Asperger's. In blue is his homework for science. And as you can see, it's not legible, it's not interpretable. What happened for this particular student is that he copied a random item off of the board. He didn't even know where the homework was posted. If your student is having trouble doing the homework, the first step would be to ensure that they know where the homework is posted and that they're copying it in a way that's legible. And I would suggest that this be monitored during class and not with a para outside of class. In summary, the students will need to be much more independent when they get to college. But these self-help skills should be developed ideally in middle school, but definitely by high school. This should be a priority on an IEP. If your student has a chance of going on to post-secondary education, then this should be something worked on for many years. Students should be able to follow examples and maintain an organized notebook. Again, you have my email address and my webpage. please feel free to contact me or look for additional information.